Hi, I'm Jaclyn Jones. Today we will work on developing right-hand alternation with I and M using open string exercises and scales. The areas we will focus on are clarity, endurance, and speed. Clarity is the prime directive of your technical work. To gain clarity with your right hand, always listen for consistent sound, articulation, and synchronization. For good sound, always start your exercises at a slow speed, focusing on sound and touch. Balance the pressure of I and M equally and match the spot of preparation, tip joint flexion, follow through, and release. Be aware of the speed of each individual stroke. One finger may be faster than the other. For consistent articulation, time when you are placing on the string, when you're releasing, and observe how the fingers evenly exchange. Large motions will add extra time and can cause delays, so try to release your fingers directly over the string and be aware of the time at rest on the string or in the hand. For synchronization of hands to rhythm, be able to count clearly out loud and in your head as you play, and listen intently. The right hand must have clear directions to play evenly and must sync exactly with the metronome. Check in with yourself throughout these exercises and ask if you're listening actively or passively. Since the right hand produces the sound, the left hand must follow in sync with the right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Let's talk about endurance. There are two equal areas to develop, endurance of the mind and endurance of the hands. Practicing scales by different rhythms to replicate what you find in the wild of guitar repertoire. Quarters, eighths, triplets, dotted eighths, and 16th note rhythms. The better you know your motions, the better your hands will be able to respond to commands. Let's play the right hand alone with counting the rhythm, then counting the amount of notes per string using the C major scale. Visualize the motions of both hands with and without the guitar. All fingering should be memorized. The more you visualize, the more you'll notice as you play. We will develop endurance using long bursts with right hand alone, playing 16th notes on open strings, up to 4 measures. That is the required amount of notes for a 3-octave scale with an extra measure for some cushion. Begin by playing bursts on one string, and then use a combination of strings to work on your string crossings. Maintain the same right-hand alternation using the arm to adjust your position. For good string crossings, where you go up with I or down with M, you can move the distance of a single string. However, for bad string crossings, where you go up with I or down with M, the motion will be larger. Be aware of where the thumb places and how it moves as well. In regard to breathing, many players will hold their breath when playing fast passages. A good habit would be to breathe before playing an exercise and exhale as you play your first notes. This also helps the body relax and open up as you execute fast sections. Lastly, let's discuss speed. Many performers make speed the priority of their work and often put it on a pedestal, but it is a skill that can be developed like anything else we do. Let's begin with short bursts, 20 to 40 beats per minute, higher than your full scale speed. You can go higher if playing the right hand alone. The more you push the limits, the more tension will build. Therefore, every few beats it's good to check in and release the tension in your hand, especially on the right side, which often gets ignored when playing with I and M. Start your short bursts with typical groups by the downbeat, 1 to 4 beats of 16th notes, or 5-note groups, 9, 13, and then 17. You will need to decrease the speed as you add more notes. At faster speeds, the pluck, follow-through, and release of your alternation becomes one motion that constantly cycles. For faster speeds, pay attention to being as efficient as possible with your motions. Often they'll naturally become smaller to keep up the pace. The preparation will also be getting lighter, but be sure to make consistent contact with the string as you work. Once comfortable, try atypical groups by the upbeat, groups of 2, 3, 4, 6, or 7. These break our usual patterns and help you focus on individual motions between each note. You may find it difficult to stop because of the torque buildup in your hands, so balance your right hand and continue to release after each stroke. All these exercises can be done with open strings, chromatic scales, major and minor scales, and excerpts from your pieces. Let's review an alternation checklist for scales and repertoire. Right hand fingerings. Know your starting fingers by the string and by the group. Always decide your groupings in advance and take a pause in between repeats to evaluate and refresh the focus. Constantly running the same line may be helpful when you are rehearsing a section. However, this level of specificity requires small groups to achieve a deeper level of awareness. Left hand fingerings are equally as important to right hand alternation. Often the left hand is the difficult to move like a shift, and the right hand will compensate by slowing down to meet the left hand, but as a result, the rhythm will be affected and your alternating will either fall behind or you will subconsciously try to catch up and play the following notes more quickly. Either one leads to an unstable alternation and will most likely result in intense hand and uneven rhythm. So know your positions, know your shifts, time your release of one to the next, know what fingers go down first on each string with what right hand finger, and which ones are last. As you develop your alternation, be patient and notice the small improvements from week to week. The key to developing good technique is consistency. So I would like to challenge you all to practice bursts and scales every day for a month and track your results. You will be amazed at what you'll be able to do. Thanks for joining me today and happy practicing.
So today I will show you some exercises of mind control for your right hand fingers. I chose this name mind control because I think that it's really important to make the neuronal connection between your brain and your finger very steady, because you know, in the everyday life we are used to use the hand and give command to our hand without use each finger. So I will show you some exercises that are really simple, but you have to make it in a very careful way in order to make the neural connection between your brain and your finger more steady. So let's start. We will start without the guitar, just with your right hand. That is my left hand, by the way. Very relax it and start to move each finger. Try to avoid to move the other fingers. So let's start with the index. Be very relaxed and try to control the index. You can maybe touch the finger in order to feel it if you want. Then move with the middle, the ring, and we will use also the little finger, because even if we don't use it to play, I think that it's really important to be able to control it in order to avoid some tension. So try to move it in, try to control it. Move it very slowly. Okay. Remember to be very patient. I know that those are exercises that seems very easy, but it's all about to create a connection between your brain and your fingers. So it's very important to be concentrate and move slowly. So if you made it with the past exercise, then we can move on to the next level when we will apply this concept on the strings. I will take this position with the thumb in the A string and the little finger in the E string. And we will begin to move each finger, taking care not to cause involuntary movements in the other fingers, which must remain on the strings, enter, but not in tension. Then we can begin to combine movements in contiguous and alternating pairs. I made for you a little close-up to illustrate the complete exercise. Now to finish, the third step is to do an exercise that combines a basic movement with the autonomous control of another finger. So we will begin to perform a constant pattern, in this case with the index and the middle fingers, on the third string, alternating, and another finger that will practice independent movements and especially not associated rhythmically with these two. So, we will start with the ring finger. While the movement of the two fingers will remain unchanged, the ring finger will pass through all the strings without touching them, just brushing. And without any tension. Try just to control it without any rhythmic. So you have to go very slow. There are many combinations you can use. I made one for you. Thank you for watching, and if you have any question, comments or suggestion, feel free to write me here. Thank you and ciao!
Over the past 6 weeks, we've had a brief glance at ways that we can create an informed performance. This week, we will do a quick-fire summary of everything, just so you can see how we can make interpretive decisions to create vibrant performances that help signify a specific period of music. Of course, these are not the only way that we can do it. and I'm just skimming the surface on a few ideas. So I strongly encourage everyone to go out and do their own research. The more information we have and the more experience we have in identifying characteristic factors within a period of music can help us perform pieces in a stylistic manner. Research everything and come to your own conclusions. But these are my ideas and just a few general ideas that I use when I perform. Let's start with the melody and volume layering. In the Renaissance, as guitarists, unless of course the music calls for something else, we should approach the music from the standpoint of vocal polyphony, multiple voices of equal importance. This music is not melody driven, and the importance of the melodic line shifts between the voices. As we move to the Baroque, we can see a shift towards counterpoint, lines of equal importance that are interdependent. Think of the upper voice and the lower voice as being equal. I actually focus more on the lower voice, as the upper voice just kind of seems to work itself out. In the classical period, we start to see the separation of melody and accompaniment, and this continues throughout the lyricism of the Romantic melody as being somewhat supreme in music. Remember, when in doubt, think melody 3, bass 2, inner voices 1. In the modern and 21st century, melody is really thought of on a case-by-case basis. Do whatever the score indicates. Throughout the periods, you hear a general broadening of dynamics. In the Renaissance, we have an overall limited dynamic range and imitates the idea of soft and loud instruments. This continues throughout the Baroque, but this shifts towards an idea of terrace dynamics, or blocks of sound. We start to see the emergence of crescendos and diminuendos in the classical period, and these are even expanded more within the Romantic period, as the dynamics often follow the melodic contour. In the modern period, we can just see sudden and dramatic dynamic changes. In regards to timbre and tone color, here I am basing it on the ideas of the times. The Renaissance has some timbral changes based on the vocalization of different syllables and vowels. The Baroque has vast timbral changes associated with the doctrine of affections, an idea that all elements of music can affect our hearts and minds in various ways. The classical period sees even more experimentation in timbre, linking them with operatic characters, settings, and the imitation of different instruments and their families. Surprisingly, in the Romantic period, timbre is somewhat focused on the contrast between the repetition of phrase. In the modern period, timbre can burst out like lightning, and when in doubt, follow the score or any musical element that can be manipulated by timbre. In regards to rubato and tempo change, the Renaissance will be fairly mechanical, with tempo differences existing throughout the sections of the music, and we'll always want to have an emphasis on that final cadence. In the Baroque, we discover a clear separation between improvisation and rhythmic stability. The classical sees tenutos and tempo changes, which can almost be determined by this idea of tension versus resolution. We see the push and pull within phrases of the Romantic period. And in the modern period, well, anything goes, with reference, of course, to the score. With articulation, once again, these are dictated by imitating various aspects of the period of music. The focus on the vocal syllables in the Renaissance, the articulation associated with sequence and imitation, like fugal entries and characteristics of dance forms in the Baroque, the copying of various sounds of the different instrument families, and the visualization of different scenes and characters in the classical period. The Romantic period can see contrasting articulation over repeated phrases, And then, of course, the detailed and clearly marked scores of the modern period, which control exactly what a composer wants us to do with our fingers. Hopefully, all of this information over the past 2 months has given you some ideas on how to create opportunity in the music we play. I've included a chart explaining all of this and more, so please feel free to click on the link below. These opportunities are, of course, not the only way that we can create an informed performance. This is just one of the many options available to us. As always, after we've done all of the research, we want to employ all of these opportunities in good taste. When we sit down, I've always thought our main job is to try to convince the audience that what they are hearing is exactly how it is meant to sound. Music moves us. It expresses all of the human condition. It is not always meant to sound pleasant. We do not just sit on stage and smile at the audience. Let's feel and experience the fear and death of Roderick in the Usher Waltz. Let's visualize the etchings in the Capriccio de Goya's. Next time you start a new piece, even before you pick up the guitar, learn about the piece. Learn about the composer. What does the piece represent? From the very beginning, you will have sparked the flame needed to light the way on your journey throughout the music.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into my segment for GFAtv, and in today's video I want to talk to you about how to do proper right hand sequencing when it comes to playing arpeggios. Anyway, let's get started. So the first thing you might be asking is, what is sequencing, right? So you might have heard this term when it comes to dealing with things with numbers, for example, and it kind of has to do with that. Basically, sequencing has to do with the order of things. Now, when it comes to playing arpeggios, we obviously know the order that we're going to play, or else we wouldn't have given it a name such as PIM, also known as thumb, index, middle. So what's sequencing? So the sequencing doesn't have to do with the what or the when, but it has to do with the how. Not when are the fingers moving, but how are they moving. So let's take a PIM arpeggio as an example. If you're playing this, for example, when does the index finger play? When does it land to play? When does it get ready to play? And what's it doing when it's not playing? All of that is going to be explained when I talk about the sequence for this arpeggio. So let's take a look. So the first thing that we want to do, just so that it sounds kind of nice, is let's fret a C chord in the left hand. Now that we got that, let's go ahead and take a look at the right hand arpeggio. So the first step you're going to do is you're going to have the thumb rested on the 5th string ready to play, and the index middle finger are going to be inside the hand. Now they're not going to be closed like a fist, but they're not going to be hanging out too loose either like this. They're going to be kind of in here a little bit without being forced. What we're going to do is the thumb's going to play, and these fingers are going to fall out of the hand like this. Once they fall out of the hand, the index finger is going to land on the B string, getting ready to play the next note. As you notice now, the index finger is ready to play, the middle finger is outside of the hand, and the thumb is also at rest. Once we do this, the index finger is going to play, and the middle finger is going to prepare, the thumb is going to stay exactly where it is. So that will look something like this. Now, the index finger is inside the hand where it was kind of in the beginning. The middle finger is ready to play, thumb is where it was before. Next, the middle finger is going to play, and the thumb is going to fall back on the string, and the middle finger and the index finger are going to be back in the hand exactly where they started off. So let's see if we can do the same thing with a little bit less talking. So the thumb is going to be ready to play. Thumb plays, fingers fall, index finger prepares on B. Once that happens, index finger goes ahead and plays, middle finger prepares, index is in the hand, thumb is at rest. Middle finger plays, middle finger and index finger in the hand, thumb prepares, and you're back at ground zero. So let's go ahead and do that same thing in a loop at a little bit faster speed. That'll look and sound something like this. So the real trick with sequencing is knowing how the fingers move, but more so how they move in relation to each other, having a step-by-step process of where they are at each given point of the arpeggio. So we could take the same principle now do it in the reverse. Instead of doing a PIM, we could do it for PMI. That would be something like this. Thumb is ready to play, Fingers are in the hand, just like the other one. But this time, instead of the index finger landing, it's going to be the middle finger that lands once the fingers fall from the hand, like this. Now, middle finger is prepared, thumb is at rest, and then middle finger plays, eye prepares, middle finger's in the hand, thumb stays at rest. Index finger plays, eye and M are both in the hand, just like the beginning, thumb prepares. And that, when sped up a tad, would look something like this. So now that you understand how this works, you can take this concept and apply it to pretty much any right-hand arpeggio pattern. So let's apply it to a maybe more complicated one, maybe a P-I-M-A-M-I pattern. And that would look something like this. You're going to start with the thumb prepared on the 5th string, just like before, and having the fingers in the hand. Thumb plays, fingers fall, eye prepares. Eye plays, M prepares, eyes in the hand. M plays, A prepares, and I and M are both in the hand, and the thumb is hanging out where it was before. Now this is where it changes a bit, because once A plays, you have to get M ready again. So after A plays, you're going to have M fall and prepare. M is prepared, A is in the hand, and I actually falls out with M, at least in the way that I like to do it. And then M plays, I prepares, M and A are in the hand, I plays, and then all three are back in the hand, and now you're back at the beginning. So a little faster, that would look something like this. So to end this video off, I want to briefly talk to you about why this is so important. So let's take the idea of any large assembly line kind of thing. You want to know the how and the when of each part to make sure that it runs smoothly. Now the same thing is going to go true for your playing. Let's say you're playing in public for someone or for a few people, and when you play you get nervous. A general habit when people get nervous is they start to speed up. Now if you start to speed up and there's no plan for your fingers, that's when your fingers are going to start to lose control and you're going to start to mess up. But if you have a plan and you work your fingers in that plan at a certain speed, you have a higher chance of being successful. So to show how this works, let's take an excerpt from a piece that you guys might not be that familiar with. That's okay, but the piece is Isaac Albéniz's Asturias. So we're going to be taking a quick look at the PAM section, the part that happens right before the exciting part that everyone loves. So if I were to play this with the sequence properly, it would look something like this. Now as I'm playing this, you notice that the fingers are moving in the exact same sequence as before. Let's start to speed it up. So as you may have noticed, as my fingers started to get faster, I was able to maintain the same order of the sequence of how they were moving. Now by doing this, this is what allowed me to more or less maintain the same quality of sound that I just had earlier when I was doing it slower. So if you take this concept, you can apply it to any arpeggio, whether it's an excerpt from the Grand Overture, from Villalobos Etude 11, or any kind of piece that you have arpeggios with. The trick to doing this is work out the sequencing nice and slow, get them moving correctly, and then boost up the speed as you get more comfortable with it. Anyway, I hope you found this helpful, and happy practicing.